We've got now friend of the program, Adam from the Sons of UCF podcast.
Well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, you're right. We'll see how this goes. Adam, thanks so much for hopping on today, man.
Thank you. I like you guys already. I think we can be friends. You guys seem like good people. I love the mustache. I think we can be friends.
Perfect.
Sounds like a plan. First and foremost, man, for people that don't know a lot about the trajectory of UCF football, I think when people hear about UCF, the first thing they think about is that one season where you guys were self-declared national champions. But what is the trajectory of UCF football right now?
Yeah, so UCF football, it will be the youngest team in a Power 5 conference. So 1963 is the first time UCF opened its doors, 1968 the first class. Football didn't start till 1979, so they're the youngest program in Power 5. And they've had a meteoric rise from D3 all the way up here into the Power 5 conference. So it's been a program that's been growing. It's a school that's growing, 70+ thousand students on campus now, 330+ thousand living alumni. So it's a growing community. It's a school that has really ascended quickly. When you look at some of the other programs out there, you know, they had a 100+ year head start on UCF, and UCF caught up pretty quickly. And so it's a program on the rise. I know a lot of people caught wind of UCF in 2017. 2013, UCF won the Fiesta Bowl, beating Baylor, our new friends in the Big 12. So UCF's been on a bit of a football rise, a couple of dips and ebbs and flows, but you know, that 2017 team really kind of put more of a national focus on there. But it's a 40+ year program that has been just rocketing towards success over the last, you know, I would say 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, you said ebbs and flows recently, but for the most part, it's just been, you're just kind of seeing this thing grow from the ground up. 2002, you guys were in the MAC up until 2004. Do you remember those days, and what's kind of that been like to go from the MAC to the Conference USA to the American and now the Big 12?
Yeah, I try to forget those days because it was no fun being a Florida school, visiting MAC schools. With all due respect to Miami of Ohio and Kent State and Toledo, it wasn't necessarily a good cultural fit for UCF, but it was our first opportunity to get to a conference. And so I think we jumped at the first one. It's kind of like, I don't know, man, your first girlfriend at high school, you date somebody for a while and you're like, yeah, that was fine, but that really wasn't what it was supposed to be. That's kind of how the MAC was for UCF. We had some fun there, but it really wasn't meant to be. But it was a big time for UCF because that was our first conference, the first opportunity to play at a bigger level, a bigger stage. But it's one of those that you don't talk about the old girlfriend anymore, and you sort of forget that they're part of your life. And if there's pictures, you ask your friends to delete those from their camera rolls.
Okay. I understand that, but at least personally, I don't take MAC slander here. Wednesday night football
Fair.
is one of my favorite things ever. So maybe UCF's time in the MAC, but not the MAC as a whole.
Yeah, no, big MAC fan. Tuesday night Maction gets us all through degenerate gambling time. So I'm with you there. But it's just not a conference I want to play in. But I'm happy to watch everybody else play in the MAC. I'm fine with all that.
What do you think Arizona State fans, and I guess it just doesn't have to stick to Arizona State, but there's obviously so many new teams joining the Big 12, UCF being one of them, at least this year, ASU and the rest of the Pac-12 schools that are jumping ship starting in 2024. What is something that you think those fans need to know about UCF?
Man, we're probably going to annoy you at some point in time. It's a fan base. It's especially a Twitter, social media. Do we call it Twitter? Is it X? I don't know what we call it anymore. But it's a social media base that they're not shy. They're not quiet. If you happen to throw off a tweet that has anything negative for UCF, people will find you. They will find you quickly. You will be sought out quickly, and you will have many mentions and replies to that too. So it's certainly a very boisterous fan base, and that's kind of the way the program's grown, right? Like, you know, there's been so many people who have been pounding for UCF for a long time, and it was, you know, sort of like that school that just was the Rodney Dangerfield, couldn't get the respect, right? We kept saying we were good, and they would go, okay, yeah, we'll prove it. Okay, we beat these teams. Okay, we'll go beat these teams. All right, we beat everybody. Well, you didn't play anybody. And it always felt like no matter what we did, there was somebody kind of coming back and saying, well, you didn't do enough. So it's a chip on your shoulder style fan base. It's a fan base that certainly they're fun to trash talk, and they don't mind mixing it up, which I think is great. Game weeks are always fun for UCF and their opponent. You know, you'll talk trash. Spoiler alert, I've heard about the national championship joke before, so we'll hear that a ton over time. The only thing UCF fans don't stand for is disrespect. So make fun of our name, make fun of the directional title, make fun of the national championship. Tell us our mascot is stupid. Tell us our colors don't make any sense. But disrespect is something that UCF fans don't do. So they will be in your mentions. They will be annoying. They'll travel, man. They're looking forward to Arizona because there are people looking at the schedule like, ooh, Lubbock, Lawrence, Kansas.
Yes!
Look at all that.
Yes.
The Little Apple. I don't know if that one's ours. So as soon as Arizona and Utah and Colorado got in the mix, it was fun. So you'll see some fans out in Arizona to hang out and have a good time. And we love to get after it tailgate wise. I think we're excited about ASU because that's another school that you hear is fun to party with and hang out with. So we can't wait for the first combo tailgate where either y'all are our place or we're out your place and just tearing out the parking lots, having a good time.
All my homies hate Lubbock. We love that. You talked about, the jokes and shots that UCF fans take about not playing anyone. Well, there's one that hasn't been true in the past, but two, now it's 100% not true because you're in the Big 12. What's that going to be like? And do you think that this school and program is ready to be competing against not the best of the best, because the Big 12 is not a huge football conference, but like really solid competition?
Yeah, I think so. And here's why. I think, we recruit the state of Florida really well, right? Florida has a lot of athletes. Obviously, schools come into Florida now and take the athletes away, and Ohio State and, Michigan, schools like that, right? So the Florida athlete is usually a pretty high caliber level of athlete. And I think if you asked UCF, R11 versus year 11, and you being anybody, not just Arizona State, but R11 versus year 11, I think UCF would tell you, hey, we feel pretty good that R11 can match up with year 11. We have speed, we have size, we have power, we have strength, we have quickness. We feel like we have the intangibles to compete week in and week out, R11 versus year 11. It's when you go to that next 11, that's where things get a little bit dicey. I think UCF has to build up its depth. I think they've done a good job in the portal the last couple of seasons. But if our safety gets, nabbed with a BS targeting call and is out for the second half, who steps in to replace him, right? Somebody steps on our left guard's ankle and he's out for the second half. Do we have the depth behind him, right? Our D tackle needs a breather because he's been playing hard for a couple of plays. Who's coming in? Are they ready? I think that's where UCF's season will fall down to, is not the first 11 on 11. I think they feel good about that. And football's football, right? Like, balls bounce off people's fingertips, right? People drop snaps, all that stuff's going to happen. But it's when we have to cycle in second, third string guys, that's where UCF has to kind of make inroads. I think that the analogy I would give you is in the American Conference, if your first string is mid 3-star to high 3-star players, you're probably going to win week in and week out, right? And the Big 12, if your first string is mid 3-star, high 3-star players, you'll have a chance to win. But if your second string is low 3-star, high 2-star, that's where you have problems. You can win some games like that in the American Conference. You can't win games like that, I think, in week in and week out in the Big 12. Your first string has to be that low 4, high 3-star, and your backups need to be that mid 3-star level, I think, for UCF to compete. And I think that's the goal we have to get to. But R11 versus year 11, lace them up. Nobody gets hurt. If we played this Madden style where you took off injuries, took off fatigue, I think Gus Malzahn and UCF would feel good about it. But unfortunately, I haven't found the slider that allows us to take that off.
We haven't come up with something like that quite yet for real life. In terms of just like conference realignment, obviously there's been so much shuffling over the last month and change. We're here talking Arizona State, UCF, Colorado, Utah, Arizona. In terms of, I guess, just the folks over at UCF and people that are headed to the Big 12 prior to these Pac-12 schools, what was the perception when you heard Arizona State, Utah, Arizona, and Colorado were really going to be making that move to the Big 12?
Let's go. I mean, I think we were excited. Like I said, look, I know we haven't been in the Big 12 long enough for me to make enemies and make fun of people, but you hear the flyover conference, right? The truck stop conference. And I think a lot of fans were like, hey, we're finally in the Power 5. But again, is this a cultural fit? The closest schools to UCF right now are West Virginia and Houston. And so UCF's kind of out an island. So it's like, man, like at least we kind of broaden our horizons. We get out to some different campuses. We kind of broaden our reach a little bit. We get to tell kids we're playing in Arizona, we're playing in Utah, we're playing in Colorado. I think those are destinations kids want to play for. And ultimately, I think, once again, UCF fans are loyal. Once we became part of the Big 12 and the conference that finally accepted us after all the other conferences, turned us down or thumbed their nose at us, it was kind of like, all right, we're going to ride or die with the Big 12. And as soon as Brett Yormark waged war on the Pac-12, we were like, all right, we're all in. So to steal everything from the Pac-12, who, reports are that the Big 12 reached out for some sort of an agreement 2 years ago, and the Pac-12 thumbed their nose at them. And so we feel like, hey, we're on the right side. We're the kids throwing the rocks finally. And for the long time, we were the kids having the rocks thrown at us. So everyone who wants to come to our side and grab a rock and throw it, like we are all in. And again, we know that the schools that come in are going to bring a lot of fun and a lot of competition to the conference, some destinations to go to. And so for us, it was like, man, bring everybody. We'll take everybody. We'll take whoever you got. I don't think we wanted Stanford though. Stanford was a little bit too uppity for us. But outside of that, and Cal, because it's kind of the same thing. But outside of that, like bring us everybody. So in Oregon State, by the way, because what's going on in Oregon State, in Washington State, same thing. Outside of those, bring us everybody. And so I think we're glad we got the schools that we got. We're glad that we now have some new friends, some new rivalries to make. Yeah. And ultimately, if I can say the thing that's unpopular for UCF fans, and I don't know what anyone's theological ideology is, but UCF fans are on their knees lighting candles, praying every day that we got one of the last lifeboats off of this island, right? Because if UCF waits a year and doesn't get to the Big 12, this may not happen. We may be, relegated to the American Conference or whatever that's going to become. So, I mean, UCF got on that life raft right as that ship was sinking, and I think we're really glad that we don't have to look back and wonder, okay, what's going to happen to a Memphis of the world now and to a Stanford of the world. I think UCF's finally like, whew, we got off that sinking ship as quickly as we could.
All right. Well, let's talk about the important thing. My favorite things in the world are sports, beer, and amusement parks.
Okay.
Outside of Disney World, I know it's like 30 minutes away from the campus, and outside of Universal Studios, what am I doing in Orlando, and why is everything so wet?
Well, the wet is that's sweat because it's like 9,000 degrees humidity outside. So that's just sweat. I mean, that's just natural. It's like it's the official state flower of Florida is sweat. I mean, there's no other way around that. What do you like to do? I mean, there's a ton of downtown breweries. I think the downtown brewery scene has really picked up in Orlando and the downtown area. A little sketch some places, so keep that in mind. We have Orlando City Soccer. Though. Yeah, well, we had a guy on from Lubbock who told us the crime rate was up in Lubbock recently, and I was like, well, that's not really a good reason for me to go to Lubbock.
The guy we had from Lubbock said it's like the wine place of the world.
No, he didn't. He said he said it has a good wine scene. He did not say
he said it had a great wine scene.
Okay, but he didn't say it was of the world.
Nah, I'm gonna go back. I'll double check on that.
Listen, nothing beats those Lubbock grapes. I just wasn't sold on prairie dogs and tortillas. But in Orlando, again, there's a downtown scene. There's a brewery scene. There's a bar scene. Orlando City Soccer is downtown, and so right around that area, there's a ton of little outside bars and places to go. Near the campus is your typical campus life. UCF and Orlando are interesting is that the campus is kind of segregated from all of Orlando. So you basically have like college town. You drive like 15, 20 minutes. You have downtown, bars, clubs, things like that. And then you drive another 25 minutes. You have, SeaWorld, Universal, Disney, Epcot, all that stuff too. So there's really kind of like 3 different pockets. It really depends on what you want to get into, right? You want some young college nightlife, go to UCF, hang out at a couple bars, get some cheap beer, you're good. But if you want to ride the roller coasters and pay $19.50 for a Corona, Universal's the place for you. So it really depends on what you want to get into at any given time.
Yeah. Adam, last question before we get you out of here. Just in terms of conference realignment, we've talked about it a lot. And again, it really has dominated the news cycle, at least over the last month. In terms of additions to the new Big 12, you brought it up. Doesn't feel like either one of the schools has been in the conference long enough to really pick and choose what's next. But if you got the luxury of picking 2 more additions to add to the new Big 12, and you could poach from the ACC, what's left of the Pac-12, the Mountain West, etc., what 2 schools would you add?
I mean, selfishly, I'd want something a little closer to Florida, right? Just so we have some trips. UCF and Miami fans don't get along very well. I don't know if you guys know this, but like 30 years ago, Miami won some championships, and they haven't realized that was still 30 years ago. So there's a ton of back and forth between UCF and Miami fans. So give me Miami. I guess give me Florida State if I'm going ACC. Let's keep it home so we have some home and home rivalries. That's the cool thing. I'd like what happened for the new schools from the Pac is you brought your friends with you, right? So you guys get to keep Arizona. You guys get to keep pounding on them and beating them every season. You get to keep that rivalry. We lost our main chief rival, which really wasn't a rival because they suck, but we lost that rivalry. But I appreciate how you all brought Arizona with you. Utah's got BYU. I appreciate how there's some of that. We don't really have that now. So give me one of those. I'll take Miami. and then Florida State, so I can drive to that game and not have to get on an airplane and try to figure out how the hell to connect to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Miami and Florida State, man.
Are there direct flights to Stillwater? Do you guys know? I don't think there are.
I don't think so.
No idea.
Is there an airport in Stillwater? Is probably the better question. I should.
They just kind of make you jump out. They hand you a parachute as soon as you get over the stadium and you have to go.
The water's still, so
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
There you go. Adam, thank you so much for hopping on today, man. And everybody in the chat can follow you guys over at Sons of UCF. Phenomenal podcast, phenomenal social presence. Again, Adam, thank you so much for hopping on today, man.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.